At least not with words. Loraine Whittaker doesn't speak. Inside a weathered house tucked into the hills, she lives in a quiet corner of odd West Virginia. Seated by the window you'll find her, unmoving, sometimes looking out, sometimes not. Her world is still marked by habit, pattern, and presence. Not a name in the system, not a face in the crowd, but she is known, especially now. Her image you've probably seen online. Millions of views, viral videos. She rarely moves, never talks, but there in the frame she is, always watching or being watched. Part of the Whittaker family, Loraine is, often called America's most inbred. A label that weighs heavy it is, and says little. More than genetics, her life is. It's routine, familiarity, silence. Her space and those around her, she understands, and they understand her. A son she has. Much about him you won't hear, just the occasional glimpse, a mention here or there. How or when, no one says, but there he is, just like she is. Things we don't know there are about her past, about her mind. A troubled beginning some stories suggest, maybe even violence. But a case file this isn't. A life it is, and on her terms Loraine lives it, or as close as one can get. For pity she doesn't ask. For attention she doesn't ask. For anything she doesn't ask. But if you watch closely, you'll see she has always been there. Quiet, still, present. In the folds of a rare genetic web, Loraine Whittaker's life begins, like that of her siblings. One that didn't start with her and with her son likely won't end. With a pair of identical twins it began, John and Henry Whittaker. Cousins their children were, but genetically closer to half-siblings, married. A one-time event that marriage was not. A pattern it became. For at least 3 generations, within themselves the Whittakers married, often between close cousins. The result was a kind of genetic echo chamber, each generation more isolated, more affected, more bound by the invisible hand of inheritance. Into this structure, Loraine was born. The daughter of Gracie and John Whittaker she is, according to what is known, a couple who were already cousins by blood. Cousins as well were Gracie's own parents. This means that by the time Loraine was born, dangerously thin the family's genetic diversity had. Recessive traits once harmless in the background had nowhere to hide. In physical features they expressed themselves, in neurological delays in speech and cognition. The science, that is. But everything science doesn't explain. A diagnosis, Loraine is not. A syndrome she is not. A person she is. To illustrate a textbook she doesn't exist, but a story her body does tell of chromosomes meeting in ways they weren't meant to, of isolation repeating itself biologically. This level of inbreeding some researchers describe with terms like elevated homozygosity and consanguinity coefficients. For most people, abstract those are. For Loraine, lived reality they are. Alone, the town of Odd, secluded in the Appalachian foothills, didn't create this. Its part geography played. So did poverty, stigma, and the silence that often surrounds families like hers. A family line what began as, became a loop over time. And tightened that loop did. So when Loraine was born, more than her own DNA she carried. History she carried. And unlike most of us, behind she couldn't leave it. The face of the family she's not, but in the frame she's often. Little Loraine Whittaker moves, nothing she says, and yet unmistakable she is. In the background of many videos you'll see her, slightly hunched, expression neutral, hair parted the same way each time. With the same posture she sits in the same chair day after day. For many, into the room she blends. But once you notice her, unsee her you can't. In her 50s she's believed to be, though uncertain her official age remains. No birth certificate has been made public, no medical records. In school rosters she doesn't appear, employment databases, or health registries. Like much of her life, unofficial her identity is, undocumented, but not invisible. Conversation Loraine doesn't initiate, but her those around her seem to understand. To tone she responds, to proximity, to routine. Full sentences she doesn't need to make herself known. Her presence communicates. Who is she? A daughter she is, a sister, possibly a mother. Part of a family she is that rarely explains itself and a life that resists easy definition. An interview she has never given, never spoken into a microphone. But make no mistake, all along she has been speaking. How to listen you just have to learn. In the Whittaker house, no small talk there is. With words Loraine doesn't speak, but that doesn't mean she doesn't communicate. Like many in her family, sounds she uses, grunts, short gasps, and the occasional hum. Meaning gestures carry. Eye movements, the way she tilts her head towards someone when she wants something. A language outsiders understand it is not, but inside the house, it works. Silence for absence it's easy to mistake, but in Loraine's case, with rhythm silence is filled. When called, she responds. Routines she knows, when to sit, when to eat, when to step aside for someone else. In the traditional sense, her communication isn't expressive, but consistent it is, predictable, understood. Her brother, Ray, is the most visibly nonverbal among them, often barking or grunting in response to visitors. Loraine is quieter. To the camera she rarely reacts. But when a sibling places a hand on her shoulder, she leans. When a familiar voice calls her name, she turns. Over time, patterns emerge. Comfort she expresses, annoyance, curiosity, all without words. And for those who've spent time in the house, clear these signals become. To her inner world, no guidebook there is, no clinical report. But Loraine's way of being is no accident. A form of connection it is built over decades, shaped by repetition, trust, and proximity. To someone outside, like emptiness it might look. But if you live inside that silence long enough, you realize it speaks. On the edge of odd West Virginia, the house isn't just where Loraine lives. Her entire world it is. The floors creak. Stained from years without fresh paint, the walls are. A couch doubles as a bed. A dining chair becomes a place of rest. Of time inside, no clear sense there is. Daylight filters in when it can, and routines unfold more by habit than by clock. Her space, Loraine knows. Rarely she leaves it. When food appears, she eats, moves only when needed, and for hours in the same place she sits. Passivity it's not, familiarity it is. Trapped exactly she's not. She just doesn't go. Around her, her siblings form the circle. Ree grunts. Timmy hums. What little caretaking gets done, Betty handles. Food, blankets, comfort. Together, a kind of order they maintain. Clean it's not. Quiet it's not, but theirs it is. Visitors come and go, mostly now because of the videos, sometimes with donations, sometimes with questions. To either, Loraine doesn't react much. A piece of furniture the camera might as well be. Through death she has lived. Larry's passing, others unnamed. Through the same window, seasons come and go she has seen. Around her, life events happen, but her rhythm stays the same. Stagnation some would call it. Survival others might call it. But for Loraine, life this is. Not paused, not broken, just continuous. To be on camera Loraine never asked, but by millions she's been seen. Since 2020, an online phenomenon the Whittaker family has become. By filmmaker Mark Leah, videos show their lives inside and out. Unfiltered, raw, and controversial. In many of them, Loraine appears, often silent, often still, always watched. The exposure brought help, some say, donations, food, clothes, even medical visits for some family members. To humanize those whom society tends to ignore, was Leah's stated goal. The Whittakers he filmed to show that despite their limitations, people they are, real, full, deserving of dignity. But not everyone agrees. The tone of the video's critics point to how the camera lingers on deformities, how silence is used for effect, how titles emphasize inbreeding over identity. Poverty porn, some call it, others exploitation masked as compassion. Directly, Loraine in particular is rarely acknowledged. In the frame she is, but in the narrative not. She doesn't speak. Interviewed she's never. Her opinion no one asks. Perhaps because they assume she can't give one. But the question remains, when does documenting become exposing? When does awareness become entertainment? Their lives, the viral attention changed. To take photos, people now show up. Them protect or avoid them, locals do. Once hidden by geography, the family is now defined by global scrutiny. And Loraine, mostly unmoved she remains. The camera watches. She does not perform. In some frames, back she stares, calm, blank, present. What she thinks of it all, it's hard to know, or if she thinks about it at all. But that doesn't make the question disappear. Harder to answer it only makes. A way people look at Loraine there is. Not directly, not with malice, but with that quick, instinctive glance, the kind reserved for things we don't understand or don't want to. Her appearance invites questions rarely spoken aloud. Her silence even more. Online, in comment sections, words like creepy, mutant, or inbred float, detached from the real person they target. And that's the danger of the label. A type it makes her, not a person. Shorthand for a list of assumptions about intelligence, behavior, even worth, inbreeding becomes. In Appalachian history, long it has been used to dehumanize the rural poor, to explain poverty not as systemic failure, but as personal defect. People like Loraine it strips of context and often of dignity. As warnings, her physical features shaped by generations of closed genetics are read. For emptiness, her stillness is mistaken. As animalistic, her sounds are interpreted. And just like that, Loraine she's no longer. A symbol she is, a spectacle. New this isn't. Those who look different, speak differently, or don't conform to expectations of productivity or expression, societies have long othered. What's new is the reach. Millions of eyes, instant judgment, permanent digital records. And yet, this image Loraine doesn't fight. She doesn't protest. She simply exists. An act of quiet defiance that alone becomes. Because in a world that often treats her as less, otherwise her presence says. Here she is still. About Loraine, most people don't talk. They don't point or stare or whisper. They simply pass by. In the background, for much of her life, Loraine has lived, literally and figuratively, not hidden, but unnoticed. By millions, in videos she's been watched, yet her name few know. In the frame she's present, but from the conversation absent. The quieter form of stigma that is, not cruelty, but indifference. In the broader narrative, rarely mentioned she is, not interviewed, not highlighted. While others in the family speak or interact, still Loraine is often. And because she doesn't engage, nothing there is to see the world assumes. But what if we've just never taken the time to look? Shaped by isolation and circumstance, her life unfolds quietly. The spotlight she doesn't seek. Validation she doesn't need. In a rhythm that is her own she lives, unchanged by outside curiosity or viral attention. How people judge her, the real story isn't. How few bother to ask who she is, it is. Through productivity, speech, charisma, society often defines worth. But those terms Loraine defies simply by existing outside them. Herself she doesn't explain. She doesn't have to. And in a world that measures everything by visibility and noise, a form of quiet truth is Loraine's quiet presence. A symbol she is not a warning, not a case study. A person she is, and here she's still,